Hi, and welcome to today's show. Today we're going to be talking about how or does social media fit inside your sales funnel. Take it away, Melanie.
Thank you, Jess, as always, bringing us in. We have our spotlight speaker tonight. Our featured guest is Pam Aungst. We hope that you've had time to look at her profile ahead of time. She is an expert in social media and search engine optimization. And tonight we're going to be talking about sales funnels and trying to understand them, what they actually are, how does that fit into your plan, and so forth. So we would like to start out with Pam, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Pam Aungst, Pam and Marketing. I introduced myself by saying I was born and raised a geek. Yeah. My dad had a TV repair business, so he was always bringing home the latest gadgets, which back then were like Beta VCRs and my favorite, Commodore 64 computer, which I would sit there and type 3 pages of code into that thing just to get a little ball to bounce around the screen. But I thought that was fantastic. So I was drawn to that stuff ever since I was real little. And then, of course, when we got the internet in the house, I started coding websites in HTML just for fun in high school. And that, not so directly, but that led into a career in e-commerce where I was e-commerce manager for 2 different companies and learned a lot about driving traffic to websites. And I also got my MBA in marketing, where in business school they really didn't teach me anything about digital marketing. That was all taught by experience. But what they did teach me and drive home the importance of is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, which is marketing strategy and the importance of writing a strategic and measurable marketing plan and how to use that for continuous improvement. So more on that later, but that's me.
Well, thank you. Inside the event page, we've included a typical sales funnel that Pam has included, and we want to make sure you understand, as she clarified to us, that's not exactly in the order. So we're going to explain what that means. We understand you can have multiple channels. Pam, can you help us understand why we need to understand a sales funnel in the first place?
Sure. I'm a big believer in you can't get to where you're going without a roadmap, which is kind of cliche, but you know it's true. If you tried to get from point A to point B and you didn't have a map or a GPS, you might get there eventually. You might, stop at every gas station and ask for directions and figure it out based on a compass in your car or something. But it would be a lot more quick and easy and efficient and effective if you had a map. So the online sales funnel, or sales funnel in general, is basically kind of the map of how you guide prospects down a process until they become leads or customers. And it's really surprising how specifically people need to be told what to do next online. It's always helpful in any situation for people to be specifically told what to do next, but especially on a website and in internet marketing, it's like that's why calls to action are so important, because you have to have a very clear next step, a big orange button or something that's like, no question, this is the next thing you need to go do. And if you don't know what your sales funnel is, then coming up with a call to action to guide your prospects down that funnel is pretty much impossible to do incredibly effectively. So that's really the importance in defining it, so that you can make effective marketing plans and align your different tactics, including social media, which we're going to talk about and whether that plays a role, but you can't really align them effectively until you know what path you need to go people down.
How easy do you find that to map out? Oh, sorry. Where you going, Melanie?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, how easy do you find that to map out with people, both from people who aren't using technology to help them manage their sales funnel specifically? Because if you've got Infusionsoft or something like that, then once you've got your head around the tech, it's fairly easy to map it all out. But if you haven't, if you're just a small business, that's quite tricky.
It certainly can be. It's an excellent question. It's not often easy, and I start by asking people what works offline, so what works traditionally in their business. And if you can map that out, then you can kind of try to port that over, or at least pieces of that over to online. So if, you know, writing or publishing a newsletter, like a print, old-fashioned newsletter, was an important part of your sales cycle in the past, well, then an email newsletter will likely be, you know, take the same place in the funnel in the digital world. So I typically start by, you know, encouraging them to map out what they know works. And it might look a little different, and it probably will end up looking a little different, and that's where trial and error and continuous improvement come into play. But, you know, that's a really good start for taking a stab at what your online sales funnel might be.
I had a question to maybe clarify to our viewers. When I'm thinking of a funnel, you know, this triangle thing that filters down, like if I were to use a funnel when I pour milk from a gallon into a little bottle, you know, I'm visualizing this, and I pour that milk, everything does go down the funnel. So when I use the word cram, things don't get lost in that funnel, do they? In your roadmap, they still get filtered through, or they don't get filtered through. I mean, if you have a big long sales funnel, let's say, I think yours was your example was like six things in there. What if is it a bad idea to have 15 or 16 plans in a sales funnel, because then it all gets more crammed, or that doesn't matter?
It's really based upon what works, and in some businesses that have a really long, complicated sales cycle, that you may need that many steps. It may be required in order to be effective. It's a highly engineered product, and you have to have 18 meetings with an architect before you can get it written into the spec and then ask for the bid. And like it could be, you know, it's just going to look entirely different for different companies, which is why I usually encourage to start with, you know, mapping out what works traditionally and just trying to port that over online. So if traditionally you have to jump through 16 hoops to get a prospect to turn into a customer, they need, you know, 16 different types of activities to put into your sales process. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's very simple. You know, with e-commerce and online stores, it can be one hop sometimes. You know, you hit them in the right place on a social media ad, and boom, add to cart, check out, done. You know, so.
And that's actually a really good point, Pam, is that where online and social media and digital commerce come in is that we get to leapfrog over some of those traditional steps, and so we can help people get what they need faster. We can get what we want faster, but we also are making a different kind of a connection. And so if I have a product that has 16 steps in a traditional sales cycle, and I'm able to figure out maybe my online sales funnel, one of them, might have 10 steps. That still means that there's a lot of work that will happen, and when you're working with social media, it seems like it would be hard to know how that social media is actually moving them through your sales funnel of your however many steps are there, or attribute, you know, helping them move from step to step. Have you found a way that we can actually see how social media can play an impact, and we can kind of find where people are in our sales funnel?
Not a straightforward answer, but the kind of not straightforward answer is with testing. With, you know, the fancy term for it in the industry is A/B testing. But, you know, just set out two hypotheses. Like, remember high school science class here. You know, you have a good guess of what it might be, but it might be this too. So, you know, take hypothesis A and try it for a week or a month, and then hypothesis B and try that. You know, so if maybe your suspicion is that social media needs to drive people to download your white paper, and then from the white paper they need to join the email list. If that's one suspicion, you know, try that out. But maybe, you know, it might be that social media needs to drive people to the email list, and then once they're on the email list, they find out about your white papers, and that might work better. So, you know, just trying scenario A and then B and measuring.
And you know what I love? I hear you saying each item has a role, and social media is not necessarily always about pushing out information or getting people to be aware or just building relationships. It actually has a purpose to get them to your newsletter sign up or to get them to your white paper download, whatever you decide. And if you're doing that effectively, it should be trackable in some way.
Absolutely, yeah, and the role may look different. It may look like pushing people to, engage with your brand through an email newsletter or to download something, but it also might just be brand awareness building. It might be customer service. If you have repeat customers and it's really important for you to re-engage customers, the social media might simply play the role of staying in front of them and staying top of mind, or providing customer service and making sure they're happy, getting quick answers to their questions through social media. So it can look entirely different ways, but it absolutely has a role, I think, in almost everyone's online sales cycle.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. And I like how you were saying maybe it would be some sort of a customer service role, or maybe it would be a way to submit feature requests, or maybe it would be a way to collaborate and expand the edges of whatever, depending on the product. Is there a way to expand and see how other people are using it?
Absolutely, and I think that it may play different roles based for different target market segments. So you have your pool of customers, but there's different kind of groups within that group of customers, and one group of customers may prefer to use, let's say, a LinkedIn group to contact you for feature requests in your software. But another group may be more adept to tweet you or to email you, or so that kind of segues into the second thing that we were going to talk about, which is the fact that you may have different funnels for different target markets, and or just different paths. Sometimes it goes out of order, and it could go this way or it could go this way. But a really important thing when it comes to social media is matching up the demographics of your target market segments with the demographics of the user base of the social media network. So if someone say to me, I need to be on Twitter, right? Every business is on Twitter. My business needs to be on Twitter. What is it that you sell? He sells, golf tours to, that I'm guessing, to males 55 and up, maybe, and he was like, yeah, I'm like, no, you don't need to be on Twitter. Although that is a fast-growing demographic on Twitter, the kind of classic place for that demographic to be on social media is LinkedIn. So, it can look drastically different based upon your target market segment. So if his one customer is typically, 55-year-old male, then he may have to have LinkedIn be the only social media piece in that sales funnel. Or if he has a whole other segment where he sells, a combo wine and golf tour, and he's marketing to the wife, then, or a younger demographic, then, Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest might absolutely come into play there. So it can look entirely different, the sales funnels and the plans based upon target market segment.
So let me again clarify, because I know that our audience is full of all different demographics. We have people who own small businesses, people who just want to increase their personal branding or their personal presence. So when we think of sales funnel, the little triangle like the funnel, it's important that we assign what the result we want at the bottom, because that's where it's going to be filtered. So at the bottom we would assign it like, this is how we want to have customer engagement. This is our point of sales, our POS sales funnel. This would be our increase membership sales funnel. So you can have a multiple sales funnels, but to do a sales funnel, you think of the end rather than the beginning first. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so when thinking of what works, you might think of your last 5 or 10 clients that you did successfully obtain, and think, okay, well, what was the previous step with this one? So, Joe, okay, well, he, found me or he contacted me after I sent out an e-blast. Okay, so, well, maybe I go back into my MailChimp and see where and when and how Joe initially joined my email newsletter, and backtrack from there and so on. So, absolutely to think of the end goal first, and then what you have to do to, until you cast a wide enough net to make that happen again. And that's another important point, to cast a wide enough net, is because if you think the whole concept of the funnel and the fact that it starts out big and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, is the fact that, only, like in the example, that's an example from my business. I use SEO and social media to promote blog articles. So, but only a certain number of people that see me out there in the SEO or in social world are going to click on a blog article. And only a certain percentage of those are going to take the next step, which is to download something. Only a certain percentage of those are going to join, my email newsletter, and only a certain percentage of those, and so on and so on. So if you only cast a net that's, this big, and then it starts getting chipped away at with the different steps in the process, you could easily drill down to zero, without having gotten through all the steps. So, so starting with the end goal, figuring out backwards what you need to do from there, and then also maybe using numbers to, if you're savvy with that, to figure out what those percentages are. Well, only 50% of the people who download my white paper join my email list. That means I need to up my white paper downloads to, X number.
Trina has brought up an interesting point. She's saying, is most of this towards selling and making money, or can it be used to spread an important value, message, or cause?
That's absolutely possible. Like Melanie said, the end goal, whatever that may be. That may be a sale. It may not be a sale. It may be a lead. Maybe you have to court the customer offline for a long time after you get the lead. So maybe the end goal of the funnel is just the lead, or to spread a message, to gather donations, to anything.
Well, so I'm thinking about this from a parenting perspective now. It's the only sales funnel I can get outside of my business. So, because I'm a mom and I'm a businesswoman. So if I'm thinking about this, I have this big vision of the type of child I'm hoping to raise. So that's my outcome. And so I'm thinking about all of these things that I have to do along the way, and based off of his age, the older he gets, the smaller my funnel is going to get, till I hope that I have given him everything he needs to live his full potential, is basically it. Not what do I want him to become, but help him be the full self that he can become. That's not something to sell. That's actually truly an idea. And I've decided, so up here, these are the things I'm going to try and do for him in his life. And here, I have no idea because we're not there yet, but I know we're going to get to that point. And here, because it's an inverse of the younger they are, the more they need you. And you have a lot more input, and the more independent they are, the less they need you. But in that point in time, each interaction is that much more important. So if we're going down this sales funnel, the closer you get to that goal, every step and every interaction counts that much more and has to carry that much of a weight. Would that be a comparison to take your sales funnel outside of business and apply it to something in our lives that we could then duplicate for something that's not parenting but still outside of business?
Right. The way that I identify with the example you just gave is also related to the percentages that I was just talking about. Is only a certain percentage of the biggest, most common thing that you try is going to succeed and take you to the ability to do the next thing. And with the kids, it's like, you may give them 50 different kinds of opportunities to grow their social circle. 50 different sports you offer up to them. So only a certain number of those are going to stick and resonate with them. And then within those opportunities, only a certain number of the opportunities that come up within that realm are going to resonate, and so on. So, if you think about it that way, that's a good comparison for anything that you do in life. Is you got to cast this wide net, try all different things. Only a certain percentage is going to work. But then when you've gone through that process, so let's say you have a kid, and every kid's unique and different. So of course this is not exact science, but so you have a kid, you raise them almost all the way to the point where they're a responsible adult, and you're proud of them and the way they turned out. You would feel at least confident. It's going to play out a little differently, but you would feel confident in having somewhat of a game plan for the second one, and what you're going to the way that you're going to guide them down that same funnel.
I would add that a sales funnel, we could substitute the word sales and just put goal funnel. It's like when you if you know that you want to buy a house one day, you may have at the top of that sales funnel maybe first learn how to live on your own, which is like you rent a place, and then next you might have so much money you put aside for down payment. Next is maybe you actually look at, you start daydreaming about the house you want, and just continues down, so that at the very bottom of that at the goal funnel, you now are ready to buy a house. And then you can even create a different goal funnel when you are out looking for a home. You've already processed that funnel. So then you enter a new one where now the big thing at the top of the funnel is now you are actually looking at properties. And then you want to narrow it down to you only want to look at properties that have an acre of land and 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms and so forth. And then you just narrow it down. Or when you buy a car, or when you enter a college program. So we could say it's a goal funnel, not just a sales funnel.
Absolutely, I completely agree. That's actually what it's called in Google Analytics. If you want to set up your goals and and watch your stats, you can set up a goal funnel in Google Analytics and say, okay, well this many people are going to come in on the home page, but I need them to go to this page next and this page next and this page next. And you can set that up and watch the stats go down the funnel. And they call it a goal funnel because it can apply to anything, any end result that you want. So yeah, the terminology could certainly be a goal funnel too. Typically we say sales because typically we're talking about business and the end goal. But yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's a goal.
And so that brings up Stephanie Sims' question that we touched on a little bit, and I love it. Is it possible to cast too wide of a net, particularly if it concerns a new product where we don't necessarily have experience with how the funnel plays out yet?
Excellent question, and absolutely, I would think. If you you're basically just not spending money efficiently at that point. If you're just casting such a wide net, that you're like, oh, well, anybody could be my customer. You're not really using the statistics to your advantage of knowing that, this, like with the golf tours. Yeah, okay, in theory, any adult could purchase a golf tour. But, the customer and my client, in my case, knew that it tended to be, older males. So he could capitalize upon that, and if he targeted the top of his net towards that, he'd have to spend a lot less money to convert them because a higher percentage of that top of net is going to convert, down the sales funnel than if he just sprayed marketing all over the place. He would happen to hit the older males in that process, and they would catch, and maybe some other random ones would catch too, but you'd spend a lot more time and money and efforts casting too wide of a net than if you really try to define your target market segments and go after them specifically where they are.
So to make sure that I understand, because that makes a lot of sense. If I know an idea of a target market, then I have some concept of what I think that path should be, so I have that educated guess to work from to really be able to manage my resources the best way possible.
Absolutely, and if you're really new business and it's a product that has never existed before and you really don't know too much, if you take your best guess at target market, at least, even if you really don't have a guess at what your funnel is, if you take a guess at target market, you at least know the playground to experiment in. It's going to be trial and error, but if you think hard about it and strategize about it, you will have a better chance of figuring stuff out if you're kind of doing your experimentation in front of the right audience or what you are pretty sure is going to be the right audience.
Phil's brought up an interesting point actually out of that conversation, and that's whether or not social media can help dial in your audience so the net that you cast snags targeted people, making those percentages higher than normal. And from my point of view, it's a yes and a no, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, I would completely agree, yes, as well. Social media is a beautifully targeted thing. I mean, first and foremost, if we're not even talking about social media advertising, we know a lot about the demographics of the users, which is pretty unique. You don't really always know that, if you're dealing with Google or any other form of marketing, you typically don't know, the age, location, gender, occupation, size of company they work for. It's, a crazy amount of statistics are available just about the user base. But then if you do take advantage of social media advertising, which I'm actually a really big advocate of, because the targeting, you can just go right into, you can narrow your targeting to one individual. If you had one VP of something on LinkedIn in some specific company, you wanted to get to him, you could run an ad that would only show to him. So it's amazingly targeted, and that can help you skip steps in your funnel. So in mine, so I can screen share to bring it up here. You guys just let me know if this is working or not. Can you see that funnel slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So mine that my example that I gave is one of the ways it plays out for me, where SEO and social media are driving traffic to blog articles, which is driving traffic to downloads, and in that process, some of them join my email marketing list. And then people, they're still not really ready to deal with me yet until they see me on some kind of a webinar or a seminar or virtual event so I can demonstrate my expertise, and then I have a chance of them becoming a lead. But when I have an event coming up, if I have a webinar coming up, I can use the social media advertising to skip a lot of these steps and really just go right in for the second to last step, which is webinars. I just run a social ad to my target market, the type of people I know typically join my webinars, and I just cut corners and I hop right from the top. If I use social media ads as the top, I basically skip 3 steps and go right to the webinar part of things. And I think that a lot of people are resistant to social media advertising because of the fact that it, quote unquote, used to be free, in the sense of it only took your time to market your business on social media, and now, Facebook newsfeed algorithms are changing so that it's really becoming a pay-to-play thing. You don't get much exposure at all anymore on Facebook unless you pay for ads, and a lot of people grumble about that. And yeah, I get it, it's a tough transition. It's discouraging to go from something that used to be free for a lot of exposure to now having to pay. But if you think about it, I read a stat the other day. Social media advertising is 1% of the cost of TV advertising to reach the same number of people. So if you're perfectly okay with the notion of paying for a commercial on TV, if you would expect to have to pay to have a commercial on TV, then you would probably should not have such an issue paying to get the same exposure on social media. So
yeah, and Pam, I want to elaborate when you talk about the shortest path, and then in the beginning we talked about road maps, and that reminded me when I was a kid, we used to travel. We had a camper and everything, so we would go all over the continental United States. I used to tell my dad all the time, because they really planned the itinerary and the mileage and the gas. I used to say, why can't we just get in the car, get on a road, and drive all the way till it ends and see where we end up? And he said, well, that's why we have a map, because we know ahead of time where it's going to end. So if we wanted to get to the Grand Canyon from Ohio, we could take the straightest shot, or we could take the scenic route and go around and see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. We could go see the Black Hills in Montana and then head on down. Or we could just take the straight shot and go through Kansas and cornfields and all the way through. So if we can think of our funnel as being, we determine what would be the fastest way for us to save on our mileage, our gas, our expenses. That's where it behooves everybody to really figure out what their goal is and what is the most efficient and effective way to do it.
Right, and it's a good point about efficiency. Even if you take the same exact path from Ohio to the Grand Canyon, you can go by car or you can go by plane. And, it depends on the cost of the plane ticket, of whether that's going to be more efficient, cost-benefit analysis of driving the car there. So that's kind of exactly what I was talking about with social media advertising. I have to pay and I have to put a budget towards it, more so than usual, but I can take a plane to the Grand Canyon with the social ads and, skip steps versus drive there. It's the same exact path, but different vehicles.
And look at the possible differences in the result from that, right? There's more time to spend at the Grand Canyon. There's a little bit of less, whatever it is, less jet lag, you name it. You're more energetic when you get there.
Yes.
Yes. It's the goal and the planning that is the important part, isn't it? Because there's also always a good reason to take the winding route if you're doing brand awareness. There's always, it depends what your goal is at the end of that funnel. If it's to get as many faces at your webinar as possible, then yeah, take the quick route. If you're doing brand awareness, then maybe you do want to meander with your target market a bit more.
You bring up a really good point, Kitty, and I'm reading the book The One Thing, and in The One Thing, it talks about asking a question in such a way that you can do some really good research and find the starting point so that every action that you take is easier or makes itself known. So whether it's the meandering route or the direct route, it has some sort of a theme that will get you where you're going, and it will carry the impact that you want.
And I agree completely with what you said about goals and planning, but also measurement. Because if you set the goal and the plan of what you think is going to get you there, to go back and measure what parts of that plan worked and what parts didn't work is incredibly valuable information, because then you know next time to do more of what works and less of what doesn't work.
And so then that would lead to the reality that you have to adjust your funnel all the time. Well, not all the time, but periodically. So you should review it. It's not something that you write in the concrete and say, okay, here's what we're sticking to, because if you do that, then you're really missing. You're not studying your analytics enough to see what's working, because if it's not working, yank it out of there. If something is working, put more into that effort.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I actually wrote down that question, and you may answer this, excuse me for the interruption, but how often do we review our sales funnels would be a part 2 of that question.
I think it depends upon the volume of your activity. So if you are sending out e-blasts on a, not that anyone would do this, but on a daily basis, 5 business days a week, 4 weeks a month, 20 emails a month, you have a lot of data to analyze. Or if you have a monthly e-newsletter and, a little bit of blogging here or there, it's not, so it's really like, proportionate to the amount of activity that you have, because if you look at data points in isolation, they don't really mean anything. You're looking for trends. So however much data you need in order to be able to start to see trends, if it's 30 days, I know monthly is always a good, for anyone, good time to look at things anyway. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going down to quarterly, even if you have low volume. But, so starting with monthly is the bare minimum. If you have a lot to go through and you find it a long time, takes you a long time to go through the reports every month, you might want to break it down then to twice monthly or more. But not to look at it daily either, because that doesn't mean anything in isolation. You can't see trends based upon one point at a time.
I just wanted to interject just one little thing there, because the length of the sales funnel varies so much, and people get disheartened. I mean, in the society that we live in now, we expect results yesterday, and that doesn't always happen. I mean, you hear the most common one bandied about is that, after about 7 touches, you'll convert them to a customer. Well, no. If you're selling a luxury product, it could be 30, 36. I mean, one of my clients, it does average them 36 touches before they make a sale. And it's not because, it's because it's a huge investment. They need to build a big level of trust with people new to their brand. So I think my thing is, don't get disheartened. You're not always doing something wrong. If people are starting to trickle down, then it is working. If they're getting stuck, you'll notice it, but it's a hard one to balance, isn't it? But I think I'm just trying to say, don't get disheartened if people aren't buying from you after 7 steps, because that won't always happen.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to look entirely different for every company, and it may take you some time to figure it out. And a lot of times, this stuff takes time anyway, even if it is only 7 touches. The amount of time it takes to get those, then it may take a long time. So yeah, absolutely, not to get disheartened is important. You remind me of something I wanted to mention with the 7 touches thing, is that, we're talking online sales funnel. We're talking sales funnel theory overall, but, talking a lot about online. It can very much be mixed. And I find that, one of my sales funnels is, when people meet me through networking, I find that I can accelerate that average 7 touches process by keeping in touch with them on social media in between networking events. So whereas I might only see someone once every other month, based upon me going that month and they're not going that month and whatnot for offline networking events, I can just keep in touch with them online on LinkedIn or Facebook, or and it's worked for me. Like, it works well for me You might just hit them, the timing and the serendipity of things too. You might just hit them at the right moment when you check in. Or I got a project once just by clicking like on someone's Facebook page. I just one click, just so happened to, click like on something they posted, and out of nowhere, 5 minutes later, I get an email. They're like, oh, I was, I should ask you about this. I was just working on this, and I need to hire someone for help with this, and I forgot that you even do that until I saw you on Facebook, and I ended up, long story short, getting the project. So because of one Facebook click, but that was the touch.
Now, if we could repeat that 1,000 times, all that, just so good.
Well, that's the right place at the right time, so having been out there and all of the other work, realistically, they very well could have been moving, and then by the end they went, oh, now I'm ready to act, and I just happened to be at the bottom of the funnel.
Yep. So awareness plays a role, like overall, not even talking about specific steps, the staying top of mind and brand awareness plays a role in keeping it moving.
We talk about sales, we talk about funnels, this way. Well, in my mind, it's the opposite. I have a pyramid. So what I do, because the funnel to me, I just imagine things get crammed and crammed and crammed. That's why I use the word crammed. That's why I asked that first question. But how I perceive a funnel or a goal is it's a pyramid, and the bottom step is like a very, very strong foundation. And with each step, not only do I, but my potential customer or client has to take another step, and then it just narrows down. But at the tippy top, where the goal is met, or the point of sales, or whatever that end point is, they can rest assured that they're standing on this really firm foundation. And I know that, Jess, you had a different vision of a funnel, too.
I do. My sales funnel is, you've got your regular sales funnel, and I'm like, take it over and turn it right here. Because when we're thinking about search and SEO and social media, it's all more like a ball floated. I just got the rest of it. It's like a ball. It's like a ping pong ball in a ping pong machine. It's got to bounce around the top for a really long time around all of the edges before somebody's ready to move to that next step or take that next action. So, but what then the part that gets very specific based off of your positioning and your specific target markets and the value promise of your business is then what does come next to get them through each of the steps that you want them to become your client. But I'm a big proponent of at least where social media is concerned, is that it's like a ping pong ball bouncing around the inside of a circle or something like that at the top before anything happens inside.
Yeah, and the point would be that whatever it takes for you to visualize what you need to do to make whatever you want happen, then use that type of visualization. The traditional is the funnel, the trickle down. But if you see it as an actual target, like, the red center is like your target, and then you have the 10, 9, 8, 7 all the way through, whatever, take advantage of how you visualize what, if you road map it out, mind map it, just take advantage of that. And Pam, have you found that different clients and customers visualize it differently?
They don't talk about that too much. They're pretty much just, we're working on marketing plans, and we're not talking about shapes as much anymore. But we're moving on the geometry class. I do something about the circle, though, because I often use an analogy about a snowball effect and how all these different online tactics, so setting aside the whole triangle visual for a minute, all of these different things, play off of each other. Quite literally, this is actually the fourth point I wanted to make. Quite literally, statistically, they enhance each other. So when it comes to website traffic numbers, the more social media signals your content has, meaning, likes, retweets, pins on Pinterest, shares on LinkedIn, especially +1s on Google+, the more your content is likely to rank in a search engine. And, then the more ranking you have, the more traffic you get, the more people you can then get to be your fans, and it kind of just keeps going. And, I have a case study chart where you can see it, perfectly. It took a little while to get ramped up, and then all of a sudden it was just, this path that just was, you could just almost see the snowball just going.
So it's like exponentially. You know,
Exponentially.
2 is 4 is 8 is 6. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think actually, when to speak to the point of where social media fits in everyone's online sales funnel, I think there's an argument to be made for it fits for anyone who wants to be found in Google, which is pretty much anyone from what I've seen. I haven't run into anyone who does not want to get found in Google searches. So if you want to get found in Google searches, social media is going to have to play a role because 6 out of the top 7 ranking factors last year were social signals, and the plus ones on Google Plus being the #1. So I, for that reason alone, would argue that social media has a role in anyone's sales funnel.
But don't use it exclusively.
No.
As far as like if you still want to have print ads, or if you still want a electronic billboard by the baseball stadium, because the highways are right there. So don't just use social media only. Include whatever works for you within your goal funnel.
Right, and that takes us back to the funnel and the different pieces and where they play a role. But
Yeah.
we definitely argue that social has a role in everyone's marketing now.
Here's a question from Katerina.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me, Katrina.
She seems to have a problem that quite a few people have. They're often told by all of the gurus to offer something for free, and you can get massive amounts of clicks for free offers, but she's not seeing it translate into sales, and she wonders if there might be some process that she needs to review.
Absolutely. I think that there's kind of another shape analogy that I've heard, which is a step-up plan. And so if you envision steps, the freebie is supposed to be the bottom of a step-up plan, where you then take them from free to a small investment for a small product, with you, and then, that one can kind of urge them to a bigger one, and so on. So if the steps are not there, or if maybe it's too big of a leap, I found that, if I offer a free SEO audit, and then I try to, upsell them immediately to me providing SEO services for them, full-blown outsourced SEO, I do every little step of it for them, that is a really hard, big leap to make. Whereas if I give them a free SEO audit or, report card that just gives them a nice brief overview for free, and then I say, okay, well, for a small amount of money, I can actually, do a more in-depth report for you. So look at all these things and write out a little bit more, dive in a little deeper in your analytics and whatnot. And it's just a small commitment of money for that. And then from there, I can say, all right, well, for, the next thing we can do is create a plan for resolving these issues, and then get to the point where we actually resolve the issues. So, I found that I had way too big of a leap when I first started doing my freebie with the SEO audits, and I had to add 2 more steps in there in order to upsell people.
So and that's a good place for the A/B testing to occur also, because to find the exact, to find, do you need 2 steps or 4 steps to get where you're trying to go?
Absolutely.
So that's like packaging. So you could offer people a free membership, and then you would up it, and then at the very top you would have the ultra or the premium or the you'd have like 3 or 4 different plans, because that way, as you reach your target audience, if you offer them personalized or isolated packages, then it's more likely that you can make a point of sale there, because they'll actually pick the one that they're most comfortable with, rather than from free to like a premium package. Maybe they don't want all the bells and whistles, they just want just a little bit more. So it's better if you offer different stepping stones. Also,
as well, I think some target markets aren't good for a free offer at all, because they devalue free. There's some markets that I'm in where I don't do any free consultation at all. I always go in with a set fee for an initial consultation. You have to really know the market that you're entering into. So that could be another problem. I'm not sure what market Katrina is, but they may not value free. If it's a free ebook and there are thousands of free ebooks there, the research shows that people download hundreds of free ebooks a year, and they just get filed on their laptops. they don't do anything with them. So you have to start to get a bit more creative. But
that's a great point as well. You know, but it depends. It really depends upon the target market. It may not serve a purpose. It may be counterintuitive. It may be, you know, doing you more harm than good. And or you might be giving away too much for free. You know, I've looked at some of the freebies that I gave away, and I'm like, really? Did I? You know, I'm a big proponent of giving away a lot of information. There's a big educational process in my sales cycle, so you know I'm okay with that. But then sometimes I look back at a few of them, I'm like, I think I might have given them everything they need so that they don't need to work with me.
And you know, thinking of freebies, that is a trend where that you offer freebie, but it may not be to your direct client or customer. It's a freebie to humanity as a whole. Like Tom Shoes, for every pair of shoes they sell, they give a free pair of shoes to an underdeveloped country. And then there's a I think 2 Degrees snack bars. You buy their bars, and they, you know, that then $9 goes to feed a child for whatever. So sometimes your freebie doesn't have to be directly, but people feel good about you giving something freebie somewhere. So, but I've noticed that that's more of a trend of some of these bigger or smaller brands. Be it buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes to someone else. So you can think about that as well.
Yeah, great point. I think I've covered the main points that I wanted to cover. Do we have any more questions? Any other angles of this we want to talk about?
Well, I would just say, what are some, Pam? What are some of the reasons that you hear people don't want to bother with social media being in their funnels? What are the arguments against using social media? What are they saying?
The number one is, I don't care what you had for breakfast.
Yeah.
The most common objection to social media marketing.
The problem is sometimes our clients care what we had for breakfast.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's that line of, you know, we give some personal information about ourselves, but if people have the wrong conception of what social media is for, because you must admit that's how it started out. You know, not necessarily. I mean, you know, if you consider Facebook going back all those years, and then Twitter coming on, that's what people, because they didn't know what else to share, because it wasn't a business-oriented platform to begin with. It wasn't until it grew and started to be successful, businesses jumped in and said, "Hey, this would be a tool we could use."
And I think that's part of the problem, which is really that, you know, they don't understand it. They don't understand the business value in it, because it started out just personal, and they still see it that way, and they don't really see, and that's just really the next most common thing that I hear besides the breakfast thing is, you know, well, how would I even use it? I don't understand, you know. So I often find in any of those conversations, whether it's about social or some other online marketing activity, to give an analogy to compare it to what they do in the real world. You know, because the light bulb goes off right away. You know, so even to answer, you know, the breakfast objection, I say, well, you know, have you ever been to a networking event or a trade show where maybe, you know, you're just having cocktails and talking to someone about how many kids they have or where they went on vacation that summer, and it's kind of small talk, you know, not directly business related, but you're getting to know that person and you're building a relationship. Kind of the same thing as we're talking about what we had for breakfast on Twitter sometimes, but I have gotten business from doing that because I got to know the people through that small talk, and at the same time was demonstrating my expertise by tweeting out, you know, things about my business and my knowledge. And, you know, when it came time that they needed something, I was top of mind because I had just been talking to them about, you know, their son's 8th grade graduation that was going on that weekend. It had nothing to do with business, but I was top of mind because of it. So as soon as I relate that to, you know, have you ever been to a networking event where you didn't talk specifically about business, the light bulb kind of goes, oh yeah, well, I guess I have.
Do you sell relationships or do you sell stuff? Is my typical response, because I'm like, I'm connected to those people that I am working with and that are choosing to buy services from me. They're connecting to me, and it's great that the business is doing that, but it's the people within the business, that social aspect of it, that really comes to bear. And if I leave and somebody else fills that same position, as long as they're personable and they can relate on a personal level, that relationship for the business perspective with that client exists regardless of who's in there. When there's that social element, which I think goes exactly to what you were just put up on the screen, Kitty.
Yeah,
am I right?
absolutely. Which is why I put it down, because Tracy was just saying that she'd like us to touch on engagement to relationship to customer, and I think that did touch on that.
Yeah, I think
that's the trust. We have to. Things start with trust.
Yeah, I think that's why the authors like Ted Rubin are so popular for the concept of R on R, what is it, ROR, return on relationships, as opposed to return on investment. And I just saw another one, if I remember right off the top of my head, it's Brian Kramer, I think, that just launched a book called H2H, human to human, instead of B2C or B2B. It's all sorts of classic business books will talk about the value of relationships, and it's nothing new. It's just a new venue to do it in.
Yeah. I think that's what we all get a bit hooked up on sometimes, that, it's this huge new world. Well, it's not. It's just a new medium. Trade and relationships are still the same. We've just got a new medium to do it through.
Yeah, I think it's the same way as we, when they introduced automobiles to society, people realized, like, wow, I can get on that vehicle and I can go 20 miles an hour, so I can get there. I can go 20 miles away, it'll only take me an hour, instead of riding my horse, it'll take me it'll take me, when the thing travels 5 miles an hour, it'll take me 4 times longer. So I think it's the same thing. So Kitty, the world isn't bigger, the world is the same, the world has its capacity, but we are using different vehicles, automobiles, jet planes, high-speed trains, and now this internet, from with you can post something and a search engine can pick it up in 15 seconds, and you could be indexed on a search engine. I mean, it's just a different vehicle, and we're like flabbergasted that it's available.
Here's some comments before we do the closing comments. Here's one. Irene says, interesting to explore all the ideas around using a funnel. We would want a funnel for each goal rather than tinkering with any sort of a default setup. Kristen, I love this. I keep writing questions, then they're being answered on the way to comment. That was a good one. And Katrina had an aha moment. These are really good ideas and giving me some insights on where to tweak. Thanks for the tips. And you're right. I think I might be giving away. I'm giving away good value that people can implement, but they don't need me for a while after that. I do content consulting, writing, and helping people find their true inner voice. You ladies all rock.
Oh,
thank you. Good overview. And to go back to Tracy's comment for a minute about the engagement to relationship to customer, I think what she might have been getting at was that's a funnel in and of itself. And it's not like we were talking about funnels of tactics, of activities that you could do, but in theory, in a general theory, that's kind of like a life cycle for a prospect converting to a customer. And especially on social media, that's the way it goes. It's engagement. You engage with a whole bunch of people. Only a certain percentage of those you're going to develop a relationship with of some sort, and only a certain percentage of those are going to become a customer. So that's a funnel in and of itself, which is a really good point.
Yeah, and everything, I think everything we do, from raising children to deciding what program we want to go through, our career, whatever, everything starts with a plan, a map, a roadmap. And what's intriguing is this is the same way with marketing online. And there are people out there that can help you do that. So you don't have to think that you can do this all yourself. Pam's available. I mean, all of us are available for whatever niche you have, and how we can help with your particular thing. So you know, don't try to do anything by yourself, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's why we have this show weekly, because we certainly can't do things by ourselves. Pam, do you have any closing remarks as we wrap up our hour?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me. It was a great discussion. I apologize for the poor quality of my webcam that's making me look dark and pink. I switched webcams at the last minute thinking I would make something better, and I made it worse. So sorry about that. But thank you for having me. The discussion was an important part, and that was really great. I don't really have any, thing I want to pitch anyone or sell anything at this point, but I would love to insert you into my funnel at the webinar point if you at the email marketing point, right before the webinar point, if you are interested in any of my free learning opportunities, because there actually is a lot of information to be consumed out there for free, and I have, webinars that give, a good amount of actionable steps and information that you can use right away. So if you'd like to, you can go to my website, pamandmarketing.com, and sign up for my email newsletter and join me on a webinar soon. That's all.
Well, excellent. We're glad
Thank you
that
very
you
much
could
for joining us.
It was a great one. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Kitty, do you have any closing remarks?
I don't actually. I think I pretty much said everything during the broadcast this time around. It was really important. The same
I know.
as
I think.
Roadmap, roadmap, roadmap. Goals, goals, goals. Measure, measure, measure.
And I think starting question, starting question, starting question.
Yes.
Well, I encourage everybody to continue the conversation after the show, because anything you comment, we'll comment back to you. We'll support you, and join us next week. And please visit Pam's website, Pam Ann. P-A-M-A-N-N. It's hard for, I can sometimes get tongue-tied over that. But Pam, thank you very much for being our guest. We are so grateful. And let's get our goal funnels together and make things happen. Thank you all.
Thank you.